My name's Neil Ticktin. I'm the Editor-in-Chief and Publisher of MacTech Magazine.
And I'm Victor Agreda, the Editor-in-Chief of the unofficial Apple weblog.
And we've been doing interviews this week up here in San Francisco at the Worldwide Developer Conference 2012, talking to developers and getting an idea of what people think about Apple's announcements this week, the challenges they have, and a whole series of really great products and announcements that the individual developers have as well. So I guess we should talk about the keynote a little bit ourselves here, you know?
It was a whirlwind tour of new laptops and features coming in iOS 6 and Mountain Lion, which a lot of the Mountain Lion stuff we had heard before. I don't think there's anything super new there. But, of course, the new laptops, I was just telling Neil that I saw a Retina display MacBook Pro in action today, and the thing is unbelievable. And the detail, it's sort of one of those things where you don't quite notice it at first.
Right.
But once you start looking, then it's really phenomenal.
The richness of the entire experience.
Yeah, we zoomed in on the photo booth icon, and you could actually see the earrings and the person who's in the film strip. It's the tiniest little thing, but if you see that on a regular Mac and you zoom in, you can barely see her eyes.
You know, what amazes me is it's not just about the Retina display. I mean, they have put an incredible amount of batteries into this thing. There is an incredible amount of graphics capability into this thing. There's a lot of processor power in this thing. And of course, 16 gig of RAM, this massive SSD. I mean, it's I was sitting in the keynote with another member of the media the other day, or yesterday, and I started talking about this thing, and they're laying out all the specs on it. And I said, I wonder what they're going to name this thing. And they hadn't told us what the name was going to be yet. And I said to my fellow media folk, okay, so let's see. It's a MacBook Pro, and it is basically trying to be a MacBook Air in that light, because it doesn't have the DVD and all the stuff, and it's a lot lighter in it. And it's going to be the machine that everybody is just you know, really, really wanting for and just praying for in it. So of course, my nickname for it was the MacBook Prayer. So we'll see if it's. I haven't decided yet if it should be Prayer or PRAR. Or if it should be maybe just PRAYR with no E. Right? I think it's the one with no E.
And then just drop the E.
Drop the E, so that's what it is. But it's
Silicon
the
Valley tradition.
The MacBook Prayer. That's what I think we're gonna call this thing.
It's unbelievable. I mean, and of course it has the usual build, finish, everything. It's just really, really nicely done. Of course, USB 3. It astounds me that it took this long to get USB 3. It's unfortunate that the Mac Pros don't have USB 3, and then it makes me sort of question where they're going with the Mac Pro
viability
line.
of it.
Yeah, exactly. But we'll see. I think that in a few months that may become a little bit more clear.
Well, and what was interesting is that this is definitely the MacBook Pro with the Retina display, the official name of it, is so thoroughly thought through, and you can tell there's a ton of GPU speed, a ton of heat that goes with that. The cooling system is completely redone, and one of the coolest things. I mean, if you ask people what was their favorite feature, they'll tell you, maps in Mountain Lion, and of course the display, the Retina display itself. But one of the things that I was actually most impressed with was something that was very, very small, and that was the fan, and the way that they're doing the fan.
The asymmetrical.
Yeah.
And we'll explain what because people were like, what does asymmetrical mean?
Okay.
It's not an oval-shaped fan.
Right. So basically, you have a fan that has a hub in the middle of it. And normally, the spokes or the blades of the fan are evenly spaced around the hub of the fan the entire time. So when it spins, you just kind of see this very casual kind of blur. Well, what Apple found was that while when you have a fan that has the blades evenly spaced that way, what ends up happening is that it ends up hitting a certain harmonic and being at a consistent sound, and that sound is louder. So if they make the blades kind of unevenly spaced, so two are like this far apart and other ones are like this far apart, and kind of change them up so that they're not all symmetrical, that they're asymmetrical in there, then what ends up happening is that the sound gets spread across the sound spectrum and across the frequency spectrum, and the fan sounds quieter. Now to me, when you have something that you're tackling that's this difficult on the heat side, and you've paid that attention to detail on the fan, it just makes you really feel like this thing through and through has been completely rethought.
Well, and that's again what a lot of people missed when OS X first came out, You know, they were, license it, and then we went back to that whole thing of, if Apple really wants to survive, they need to license this great software. Even iLife, they said iLife should be on Windows and all this, and it's like people forget that Apple is a great hardware company.
Mm-hmm.
At its core, it is a fantastic, and they have amazing engineers, and that's what they think through.
All the way through, and of course the integration that goes with,
Of course, right.
So, now the map stuff, wow.
I got to play with the 3D maps on a new iPad right after the keynote. And I don't know how they downloaded it that fast, but somebody had installed it. And I was playing with it, and I was just absolutely blown away.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've done 3D work, I've done games and whatnot, and it was kind of like what you always want to do with SimCity.
Right.
Be able to zoom in and rotate around
exactly.
and spin. We were able to zoom in on a little gazebo that was probably half a mile away from the Sydney Opera House, and zoom in on this little gazebo in a park. And then even the Sydney Opera House itself, all of the overhangs and everything were dedicated polygons. It wasn't just a blob with maps on it. It was, you could actually turn around and you could see the overhang and you could see under those things. It's phenomenal.
It was really interesting to see as we're listening to this keynote, and they were going through the maps demo, if you will, right? So we're all used to Google Maps, which is a great product, great product. And you see the individual pixels, and you see them loading in blocks and grids and stuff like that. But it was very, very clear that when Apple was showing it, they were going at this in a different way. They were going at it by creating little objects that represented each building, that that you had all these different polygons and rectangles and whatever else, and even the arches, as you said, of the Sydney Opera House. And so basically, you could see as it was drawing how much that allowed them to more quickly display, how it allowed them to more quickly rotate, and it just seemed to perform a whole lot better as a result of that design decision. It was interesting to see.
Yeah, that was something that I was blown away by, for the fact that the maps and the models pulled in very quickly.
Yeah.
And you were very smoothly able to zoom in on things. We zoomed in on FedEx truck in front of a building.
Right.
Not far from where we were. Of course, that wasn't real time. That's maybe a few years down the road.
That's next year's announcement.
Yeah, exactly, right. But yeah, it's phenomenal. But I will say that I am personally going to miss in the Maps feature, and I'm sure that they'll bring this to there. But public transportation, that's going to be missed because their map product will not have the same that Google has in terms of public transportation. In a town like San Francisco, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Although, something that always frustrates me with Google is that they will sometimes tweak things in a way that perhaps gives you more options, but sometimes you don't want more options. If you're not familiar with an area and you're getting information, it's sort of like, that's sort of weird. And I found this the other day because I needed to go to Inner Sunset, and I tapped on the thing, and because I was like 2 blocks further than I normally would go, it was trying to take me on a completely different route. Yeah, and it didn't even present the other one that I'm used to taking, and I eventually just needed to move the spot and say, no, I really want to start here. So it wasn't a great experience, whereas just last year, it was a great experience.
Right.
So, there is something to that, and I think that Apple recognizes the fact that, maps and local information is going to be very critical going forward.
doubt.
As a competitive space, this is no small matter.
No, not at all.
But at the same time, I think that they wouldn't have done it if they weren't going to provide a great experience.
Right. And having the control of it is what allows Apple in the way that they want to do things to do that. It's going to be difficult. It's difficult for them to do that with an outside partner.
Right.
So it was good to see. It was definitely good to see. And the iOS 6 announcements were really great to see. Mountain Lion was really good to see. Developers are very consistently. I mean, the number of people that have ordered the MacBook Pro have decided that they. I can't tell you how many people here have already just ran right out and ordered it, online.
Yep.
A funny story was that apparently there was a bunch of people that had been ordering the MacBook Airs as they were updated, and then a little later in the keynote when the MacBook Pro came, they went ahead and canceled their orders for the MacBook Airs, and then redid it. So you saw these tweets about it. It was pretty much a crack up on it, but yeah, it was a good, solid, comprehensive, end-to-end, all kinds of things going on keynote address, and it was nice to see.
Yeah, well, and it's worth noting that this is the first WWDC without Steve Jobs.
Yeah, first really major announcement without
Yep.
Steve Jobs on it.
Yep.
So.
And I think I have not heard a single person say that that was to their detriment. You know, I think everyone felt like everything's fine. The ship is on course.
Right.
This is, you know,
And they're
this
getting
is
better.
Apple.
They're getting
Oh,
better
absolutely.
every time. They're getting better. When we saw what I call the transition keynote last WWDC, and Steve Jobs was there, but he was there for a very limited amount of time on it. We saw them do a lot in there, and now they're flying fully solo, and they did plenty fine. I mean, they did a good solid job in there. And there's things that they can do better with, and that's okay, because that's, you know, they're not Steve Jobs, and it would be kind of amazing, if it would be kind of remarkable and beyond anybody's comprehension if that weren't the case. But they are doing it. Scott Forstall did a terrific job in his presentation. Tim Cook did just fine on some stuff. The whole team went through it, and it was good to see.
What was, besides the Retina display and maps, what really piqued your interest?
I gotta say, the fan I really thought the fan was really cool. But you know, clearly they went through and did all those things that it's like, about time, guys. I mean, you needed that. There's a lot of times that they do an announcement, like, about time. I'm really glad that you finally, you know, did that. So I felt that it was a very it was a wide breadth to their announcements, and they really kind of left no stone unturned on it. Yeah, there was some stuff in there like the Mac Pro, and I think they're just not quite ready with what they want to do there.
Yeah.
This was maybe their way of saying, hey, hang tight with us for a little bit.
Yep.
You know, we're going to do a little bit here, but we're not quite ready to do that next big jump.
Right.
And
well, that's typical Apple too, and there's certainly a constant. I try to explain this to people. There's a constant push and pull. You know, they are pulling ahead, and then they're pushing people towards that spot. You know, there's that saying. You know, it's like, be where the ball should be. You know, and it's like they go out there and they say everybody needs to come this way, and you know. One thing that was evidenced by that, I think, is we were looking at Sparrow, the email client, running on the Retina, and in the what's a table list view is still fuzzy.
Yeah.
It's still optimized for the previous generation, whereas the actual emails are just a standard
perfect.
view.
Yeah.
So that text was super crisp, and you zoom in and you can see that very evidently.
Yeah.
But you know what? That will be updated. You know, and the SDK and everything will follow. I mean, all these things go out there, and then they pull everything forward, and then really everything comes together, and it's like that stuff never even happened.
Yeah, there's a lot of work that developers have to do to support Retina. It's way more difficult than people may think it is. And so be patient, people, with the developers. There's a lot of work for them to do. And some of them have been thinking about it for a while because of the message that Apple's been sending, you know, about it. But the reality is that there's still a lot of work to do until you have the machine in hand that you can actually go and play with and develop for. And so it was good to see.
Well, I have to say, though, the thing that I think I'm most jazzed about, and this is the goofiest thing ever, but the passbook.
Oh, that was very cool. That was very cool.
You know, and I travel a bit.
Yeah.
Not as much as some people maybe, but I just thought that was so cool that, and not only that, but it's the whole location thing. You know, like you show up at the wrong gate and it will warn you.
Right.
You know, and I pay for TripIt Pro, and that it doesn't even do that.
No, it was just end to end. It was. Yeah. I mean, actually, TripIt, they do send you a notification.
They do, yeah. But if you're sitting in a place, they don't do the geolocation. Like, oh, hey, you're
no, they don't do the geolocation
terminal,
part, but they'll send you a text or whatever saying, yeah.
But I think that sort of seamlessness is the kind of thing that is Apple's forte, and making things so simple that you don't even have to think about it.
Thought about it end to end, like all the different pieces of it, which is really
and you know, within a year, people will be using it, and they'll wonder, like, what did I do before this? I had to have, like, all these stupid things in my pocket and reminders, and, you know, it was a very manual process.
There's no doubt. I mean, this is the reason that mobile devices and mobile device management and all these things are just exploding right now. And so, you know, it's every once you just kind of step back for a moment, and there's a lot of companies and a lot of organizations that are not thinking about mobile device management. They're not thinking about it. All these people bringing in their own devices, whether they know about them or not. And their companies are at risk, their data is at risk, they're not realizing how big an impact Apple's, you know, consumerization of IT and how big, you know, people have just, how appealing Apple has become. And they're not seeing that trend is coming. And they're going to get caught here at some point by not really being prepared for that.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's so different because, and we were talking about this yesterday with a number of people who worked at Tabulous. And we were saying, the thing about mobile that's different is that context is everything.
Yeah.
Whereas with your computer typically, even with a laptop, you don't curl up in bed and read books on your laptop.
No.
That's like the iPad differentiates itself in that way. The iPhone, same thing. You're not going to take your Mac out on the street and try to find a map situation, and try to find where you're going to take the Muni.
Right.
I mean,
right.
Never mind the safety precautions. That's just impractical.
Right.
And so it's that context aspect. And whether it's in a corporate environment, you bring your thing from home, or you're just out on the street trying to get something done, or you need to remember something as you're walking by Walgreens one night. All of those things are contextual based, and it seems like Apple has really been thinking very hard about the context. I remember that there was a patent a few years ago that was approved or whatever, and of course we see Apple patents come and go and they don't necessarily do anything with them, but I thought this was really interesting that they were patenting a way that the phone would sort of be able to detect what you're trying to do. So for instance, you get a phone call and it would detect that you are lifting it up and putting it to your ear. So it would just answer the call, or it would maybe open it up and open up the thing, or it would do something specific based on the actual
actions that
movements.
you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that indicates where their head is at. They realize these things are so personal.
Yeah, and even at the more basic level, that's very doable today. Helping all of us over 40, remember things, or even those that are just really super busy. But it's the geofencing with the reminders app, or the geofencing with any of the of the applications that are out there is really very, very useful to do. So
especially go ahead.
I was just going to say, I just have to figure out now how to get all those to-do list items done. But
yeah, exactly. Although I like the speaking of productivity, I really like the enhancements to the phone.
Yeah.
The fact that you can send someone a message if they call you, or you can have it call them later.
Yeah.
That for me is particularly huge because if you work in the news business, someone calls you, you need to talk to them, but not right that moment.
Right.
And there's so much of that sort of.
And you need to gauge how important it is, how timely it is. It's good. Do you need to drop everything at that second or not? And one of the things though that is disappointing to me, and I will say this about the messaging scheme is that for me. And you may be the same way. There's people I talk to on Skype. There's people I talk to on Google Talk. There's other ones that maybe go over the Facebook chat or whatever, or MSN or any of these other ones that are out there. And unless you Skype, oh my God, unless you have a message app that can do all of these different types of things, it really is only a partial solution.
That's right.
And so I don't want to see this be a partial solution. If they either open up the API and let a developer do it, like the guys from ADM or something like that, do it, or something. But just don't give me an 80% solution or a 50% solution. Give me a complete solution. And that's something that sometimes Apple has a hard time with. So I would really like to see that.
Well,
so you hear that, readers and viewers that are out there, you need to write Apple and tell them you want connectivity with Skype and the other.
Unfortunately, I think that ship has sailed somewhat because the cloud is now being branded by different companies. I mean, I thought about this aloud a few weeks ago, actually, about imagine if the internet had been created in the way that people are setting up their little clouds now.
Right.
They don't talk to each other.
Right.
They don't have the same protocols even.
Right.
It's completely siloed.
Right.
And so we're getting into an era now where you kind of have to buy into an ecosystem early on.
Right.
And you're sort of locked into that.
Right.
And data portability is going to be a big problem.
Yeah, but one of the problems is that your organization or your family or whatever can buy into a thing, but if you're going to work with other organizations, you don't have that ability, and so we don't have the ability to choose.
Yep.
And in my case, I guess I would just choose not to use the message app because it just doesn't do what's out there. So hopefully,
Yeah, we'll see.
So it's good. It was a good day. It was a good day. Developers are happy. People are really wanting the MacBook Pro, officially the MacBook Pro with Retina display. The MacBook Pro is a lot shorter.
It is.
I think that people we're really very, very pleased about stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, tell us about some MacTech stuff that's coming up.
Oh, wow, we got a ton of stuff going on here. So, of course, the magazine's doing well and doing its thing on a regular basis. And we just came out with MacTech on iPad. If you're watching it this week of WWDC and you go to www.mactech.com/WWDC, you can get actually the iPad app and all the issues to date this year completely for free. You'll pay from that point forward if you subscribe later on. There's no obligation or anything like that, but it's a great deal for people who just want to get a taste. So the iPad app is doing it. We based the technology on some stuff from Aquafatus, great partner on this stuff, and looking forward to some of the new features that they're going to be bringing us down the road. But people are really, really liking the app, and all the print subscribers just get the iPad app for free, so that's part of it as well.
Then you guys have a cool feature in the app actually that helps people read, because I have this problem with all the PDF readers and whatnot. You have to zoom in. There's no intelligence as to what's on the page, but you guys have this thing that sort of understands the layout and allows people to read it a lot easier.
So, I don't know how well this will come out on camera in here, but basically, we're not really a PDF reader per se. There is a whole structure behind it. There's a lot of different data behind the thing. But basically, if you zoom in, especially if you're on the older side and you want the over 40 eyes problem, there's an arrow down here in the bit, and you go ahead and press it, and it will help guide you through from one section to the next. And as you do this, it will not only go up and down the columns of the page, but it'll take you to the right page and actually continue on. And this allows you to have very comfortable reading all the way through, even as you're zoomed in. And it works both, whether you're in landscape or in portrait mode, and it will figure out how to deal with it.
That's cool.
It's called guided reading. It's part of what Aquafatus does.
Excellent.
Yeah. So we got that going on. We have our MacTech live events, which you guys are a media sponsor of, have been going very, very well. We have actually 15 of them this year. We have from our flagship conference that's going to in October, and the early bird pricing is about to end on that this month, so price is about to go up. And we have events all over the place. I think I told you this year that we've been to or are going to Seattle, San Jose, San Diego, Phoenix, Minneapolis, Chicago, Boston, New York, Washington D.C., Miami, and Los Angeles. And so it's been a little bit nuts with that. So we got events that are for SMB consultants, people are creating that space. We have events for people that want to learn about mobile device management or network design that's in there, specifically like one day, full day on like mobile device management kind of stuff. And then our flagship MacTech conference is just 3 days of mayhem and fun and food and everything else that's there. So that's going really well. And then lastly, and all that stuff is on the MacTech website, and go check it out at mactech.com/events. We'll show you what you need to. And then lastly is we are in public beta now on a new one. I think we'll probably maybe do a little bit of a piece on this a little later on for something called MacTech Match. So MacTech Match, we get asked as MacTech Magazine all the time, do you know a developer that does this? Do you have a consultant that can help me with my computer? I need a guy that's expert in working on billings or Daylight or something like that, or an Exchange server. I need an expert consultant in it. So MacTech Match is all about matching people up with resources or geeks or techs or developers or whatever you want to call them, and helping them find the right source. And so if you're just Joe average guy, no tech knowledge, you got an idea for an app, MacTech Match.
That's great.
Same thing on the consultant side. So that's what's going on. Yeah.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
All right, I think that about covers.
Yeah. It wasn't enough for one day?
I think that was plenty for one day. Yeah, we saw some great stuff.
We saw some great stuff. We got a ton of developer interviews coming your guys' way. All kinds of really neat ideas and products and things that people were able to tell us about, and some things that are new announcements out there as well. So it's really, really good. So
exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I'm Victor Agreda Jr. of the unofficial Apple weblog, and
I'm Neil Ticktin. I'm the Editor-in-Chief and publisher of MacTech Magazine, and thank you for watching.